Hey, I'm Marina.
And I'm Emily.
And I've seen everything in the Sex and the City empire 10,000 times.
And I'm starting fresh.
So I'll be woman-splaining the show.
And I'm along for the ride.
But there's a twist. We are starting with And Just Like That and working our way back to the beginning.
So in other words, we're watching it backwards and in high heels.
This is City and the Sex. Oh my God, welcome you guys. It is, when you're hearing this, a new year.
Oh
and
my
it
God.
is a new season of And Just Like That for us.
Air horns. Because nothing says and just like that like air horns.
Exactly.
This is going to be a really weird one, I gotta say. Because I feel like these two first episodes is going to be a wild ride and there's a lot to get into. I guess off the bat, I should remind the audience, I've technically seen these two before. This is the only like Sex and the City media I had seen. And then the like second half of the second movie or whatever. But this was the first thing I had ever seen of Sex and the City. Was when And Just Like That came out. I saw just these two episodes and was like, that's cool. I'm never going to do this again. And then now I'm doing a podcast about it. So it was nice to come back full circle.
That's like astonishing for so many reasons. I'm just going to jump into my one word, which is where am I? Like, and that's why I jumped into it, because like that's like how I felt. Like, I don't know, like even when we rewatched season 2, I guess because maybe I had just finished it, I was like living in season 2 world. There was something so shocking about coming back to season 1. And I was just like, who are these people? What is this show? I felt like I was really like in a different island. I don't know about you, but I did not realize the level of the lobotomy that she got in season 2. And watching this episode, I was like, oh, right, this is Carrie.
She is a very different character. I will say that.
Is she not a different character?
Yes, she's absolutely different. She's in this. She is the person who she clearly. It's like we saw the shadow of her in season 2. Like I could see that this is what the writers think this character is, but is not actually achieving. And now I'm actually seeing her this way. So it's very perplexing. This is a very strange experiment you have we've embarked on. You've described it as Memento, but like for Carrie Bradshaw, and that gets truer every time we do this.
What's been weird for me is like, obviously it was going to be weird for you. I didn't think it would be this weird for me.
You're like, I thought you were going to have a breakdown. Why am I having a breakdown?
Yeah, I was like, why am I crying? Like, why do I need to like talk to my therapist about this? Like, I didn't anticipate this. Before we get too deep into it, what was your one word?
My one word on this is like, my one word is steering the ship. Because this is an interesting, because it is because it is functionally a pilot, there is a lot of like foundation laying and kind of, it's like, here is the ship, here is what the show is going to be. It's a mission statement. You know what I mean? It's a lot about that. And then you get to the second episode and already you start to be, even 2 episodes in, you're already like, who is driving this ship? Do we actually have a plan where we're going? Because like, we're only 2 episodes in and I already do not know who's in control at this moment. And I feel like we're already coming apart here. So, but in a good, affectionately. I can't wait to get into it.
Well, let's do it, to it, badoot it, pachu, choo, cuckoo, coo, kachoo, the walrus. Okay.
We're back, baby.
We're back, baby. I'm sick. This is... I'm on a lot of medication, okay? This is...
Yeah, exactly. Just say that anytime you say anything wrong. Just be like, she's medicated.
I'm heavily medicated. Okay. I'm on Chablis. We'll get into that. Okay. And just like that, season 1, episode 1, titled hello, it's me, which I think we know is a veiled Adele reference. They try to disguise it later because when Carrie and Big are hanging out, they pick an album to play on vinyl, and the song that plays is "Hello, It's Me." But we all know that's Adele.
You are so many levels ahead of me in your analysis. I didn't even get the like red herring of Adele, let alone that it was a reference to the record they're playing.
Okay, this is just okay. Slice of life here. I was talking to my parents recently, and they saw the Barbie movie on the plane because they hadn't seen it yet. And my mom was like excited to see it. I don't know why. I told her in advance she wouldn't like it, and surprise, surprise, she wouldn't like it. And we were in the car, and they were like, "Well, we didn't like it. We thought it was basically a pile of shit," is the Italian word that they used for it. Oh, and right. I was like, "Okay, I respect that." But like the production value and the fervor around this movie, I was like, even the fact that it came out with like a movie soundtrack, which you really haven't had since the early 2000s, kind of being a callback to when you would get these soundtracks for movies. And my mom turned around in the car and she was like, "Marina, you're too deep for me." She was like, you like have thought, like basically she was trying to say that like I was on a different level of criticism than she was. Yeah.
That is like, such a quintessential experience of like being too deep into a fandom thing or too deep into an online discourse, and then you say something and someone is just like, whoa. And then your whole world is shattered because you're like, oh no, I thought we were on the same level here. I know exactly what that experience is. That's so funny.
I was like, it put me in my place. Okay.
It really was like, hey, Marina, shut the fuck up.
Marina, shut the fuck up. Anyway, so we open and it's Carrie at brunch. Her hair is phenomenal. Can I just say that? I feel like there was like extra Carrie hair budget for this one scene.
Budget. I thought it was an interesting choice of hat, which seems to be an interesting theme with her. She likes these hats that I'm not necessarily supportive of. Girls don't support women, actually. I don't support this hat.
I'm excited when we go back to Sex and the City to be like, where did the tiny hats come from? Because she definitely had like hair accessories, but there is a hat in every scene.
Yeah.
Like a hat is pulling focus, except the scene where Big dies. Spoiler alert, there's no hat. I guess out of respect.
Out of respect. What an insane thing to say about a character that dies on a Peloton.
Oh, God. Oh, man.
Please.
Please. But anyway, they said no hat. But there is too many hats.
Just we're on Hattie Watch.
We're on Hattie
Watch, as they say.
I need like a cha-chunk sound, like Hattie Watch. I think the hat in this scene is ugly.
It's not. I'm not a fan. It looks like kind of like, when you learn how to crochet and then you crochet a thing for the first time, but it doesn't end up looking like what you wanted it to be. And you're like, it's a hat now. That's kind of what it looks like.
Get her. Yeah. It looks like
I just came out swinging. I'm sorry. We're one scene into this episode and I am just being incredibly mean already.
We didn't even get into the scene. We just started in on Sarah Jessica Parker's appearance. We didn't even get into the dialogue. We said,
I'm so sorry.
Let's just insult her head to toe. I think the hat is a rejected Peter Pan ensemble hat, like a Lost Boys hat.
That is what it looks like. Yeah,
that like a Lost Boy put on, and Peter was like, "The fuck is that? Take it off."
That's exactly what he says. It's like heartbreaking.
Wouldn't it be funny?
You're like, wow, Peter's a man. He grew up.
Peter Pan's secretly fucking savage. Like Wendy closes the door, and he's like, "You fucks." Do you remember? This is like
he's like, "You guys, I am trying to get laid. Can you please be chill?" I love this idea of Peter Pan as like a dude bro, like Peter Pan the fuck boy.
Yes.
This is good. Someone write, Tori, can you take a note of that, please, and then remind us later?
Yeah. I definitely want that series. I also like it is calling back to me, and this might be like too deep a cut, but when I was in college at my university, this girl who was a member of the Delta Gamma sorority, like, wrote an email to her fellow sisters that got like leaked in the press.
Oh, I know this. Yes.
And okay, thank God. So it was like this big deal. And I don't remember the exact contents of the letter, but she basically was like, all of you fuckers are embarrassing. Like, you cannot talk to like these girls and you have to talk to these guys, and like basically like cursed them out. And then I remember the letter ended and she was like, if you don't do these things, I will cunt punt you. That was like the big quote that we said to each other all the time. And that's Peter Pan. And we know it.
And we know it. Before I move on, I just want everyone to make a note for themselves. Google Michael Shannon Reed's viral campus letter.
Oh, God. I didn't know that existed.
And bookmark it. Marina, we're watching it after this.
Oh, my God.
It's so good. Everyone, write that down right now. We will pause. We will give you a moment. Yeah,
we're going to pause. We're going to drop a clip.
Of him saying cunt punt.
Of him saying cunt punt. It's right here.
Cunt punt.
That was good. I feel refreshed.
That was good. That's great.
Anyway, Delta Gamma, back to the show.
And just like that.
We open on Carrie at brunch, and we get a fun little remix Sex in the City, like, instrumental in the background that I really like and is the sign of times to die. My first note in my notebook is, oh God, it starts with COVID. Because I forgot that this came out in 2022 and the hottest thing to joke about was COVID. And it's so funny because I feel like at the time, media criticism was saying, we will only look back on these COVID jokes and cringe. And I agree. And I didn't even realize the extent to which I would cringe later in life.
Absolutely. It's like there's just no way it would age well. And there's something even at the time that I think was tiresome of watching people going, haha, do we elbow bump? I don't know. I personally don't find it very like funny. The faux ignorance of like, what are we doing these days is like so tiresome.
And it's like, I realized it's the scaffolding again, because it's like he wants, and by he, we all know I'm referring to our God, Michael Patrick King. Capital H, he wants to say that Samantha's no longer with us, but feels the need to connect it to COVID for like hijinky reasons.
And right, like you mean for the setup of the joke of, oh, she's no longer with us. No, she didn't die of COVID. She's just in London.
Yeah, and like Bitsy von Muffling being obsessed with people dying in COVID, I guess.
Someone does die in COVID. Someone mentions later.
It's Bitsy's husband in episode 2 because Bitsy will not let COVID as a death option be unforgotten. So she shows up. She asks about Samantha because, you know, Charlotte and Miranda have also arrived, and we get this dumb no longer with us. And then she says this like awful line that's like, yeah, sexy sirens in their 60s are still viable in London. There's something about the word viable that's just gross, in my opinion.
Pretty disgusting. And like, I don't, once again with this show, I don't know who the punchline is. You know what I mean?
I just think the word viable is what's weird.
It is pretty gross.
It's such a scientific term. I think if they'd been like, well, you know, like sexy sirens in their 60s are all the rage in London, like that would be fine. But viable?
Once again, we've already started script doctoring things in the simplest ways that make the biggest difference.
And we are in the show open.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten into
it.
It's going to be a long season, Marina.
God. Anyway, Samantha's no longer with us. JK, she's in London. More on that later.
Yeah, let's talk about that later.
But that's the brilliant open that we get. I want to pull back for a moment and just focus on Charlotte's plot for now. All the way through the episode. So we see the girls, they're all together at brunch. We'll get more into it later, but we learn that Miranda's going back to school, and Miranda has gray hair. A crime in Charlotte's eyes, which she points out because she's like, oh, you're going to school? Like, don't you want to go back to the red hair? And like gives Miranda a whole complex about it.
I mean, obviously I'm biased because, like, Charlotte's my girl or whatever. I actually thought that this reaction felt more like a foreshadowing for Miranda, because Charlotte just goes, oh, you're going back? Do you want to? And then kind of, like, motions for her hair. And Miranda kind of overreacts in a way that's, like, very strange, and, like, gives kind of a speech about, like, how dare you make hair important and this kind of thing and thing. And then Charlotte has a quip about Ruth Bader Ginsburg having it. But the way that Miranda just, like, makes a speech out of this and, like, jumps to, it's like, this really wasn't that offensive. You guys just heard someone call your ex-best friend viable. Like, this is really not the most hurtful thing that you have heard in the last, like, 10 minutes. You know what I mean? It was a very strange reaction. I feel like it was actually foreshadowing for me about, like, what is going to happen to this person, and what we see Miranda do in the next 2 episodes is very in track with this, like, I'm not sure if that's how I would react to this normal stimuli, but okay.
That's a good point. Yeah, I do love that she's like, Ruth Bader Ginsburg dyes her hair, and that's cute. And then Carrie bursts in with a mic drop, and I was like, oh, God.
It's painful.
I never rolled my eyes so hard.
I know that's going to be a theme. There's so many things where it's like they just get so close. If they just tweaked a line, or if they just cut a weird thing like that, you're like, you're so close.
So edging. So then Charlotte reveals that Lily is going to be having her piano recital, and she wants everybody to come because it's at the Manhattan School of Music. A phrase I now know because of this show. And Carrie kind of puts up a fight because she wants to go to Hamptons with Big, and eventually is like, well, I'll think about it. And then LTW shows up at the table. Lisa Todd Wexley. I finally know her name.
Yeah,
because
I've never heard that before, and I have promptly forgotten it. I already don't remember.
Did you catch, though, that when Charlotte is giving her exposition speech about Lisa Todd Wexley, where we learn everything, including her social security number, she says, and her husband Herbert is an investment banker who's interested in running for mayor?
I did not catch that at all.
Did you catch it? Because I did. And this is what I would like to call caught red Manolo'd.
Okay.
Which is like caught red-handed, which is like, now that we're going back, I just gonna just be insano about the little nitpicky errors, because that's my new personality. And it's like, he should have run for mayor. What the fuck is a comptroller? They don't even know. They didn't even put it in the first episode. They wanted him to run for mayor, and then for whatever reason they had a discussion and they changed it to comptroller. Boo, I see you. And that's it.
Boo. Poor Herbert.
Poor Herbert. Back in his shell he goes.
Back into your comptroller shell.
But anyway, Lisa Todd Wexley comes over, and they chat, just the two of them. They talk. Charlotte reveals that she came fresh from the Oscar De La Renta showroom for her 2 dresses, for her 2 girls, for the piano recital.
We do not be needing to do that. We do not. Oscar De La Renta does not need to be at this piano recital.
Yeah, I was like, straight from the showroom. I was like, I don't even want to know.
You can't get something off of like Nordstrom?
Yeah, it goes into the question, which like a lot of people have brought up, which is like, just how wealthy are these people? Like, what kind of cases is Harry handling that he has money for 3 casual Oscar De La Renta dresses from the showroom, not even from Bloomingdale's?
Right, exactly. Not from a retailer, from the direct showroom for this event that also the kids don't even show up to like try on. You know what I mean? It's like she just went out there and seemingly on a whim got them.
Picked them up. Yeah.
I will never understand it. I mean, I don't understand how famous or rich these people are, and that I'm never going to have that answer, unfortunately.
Charlotte returns home. Lily, a cunt from day one.
You can't say that. That's a 27-year-old playing a child.
There was something about the like, you rescued me exchange where I was like, what a brat. Like, again, we say this every time, but I like, because they're trying to set up in season 1 that she was so sweet, and then in season 2 she like takes a bad girl turn, and I was like, no, she was bratty from day one. It's just that Rock at this time, still being referred to as Rose, is also a brat.
Right. And then Lily looks better by comparison, because also like Lily's comments, they're kind of like snarky. They're not like at her mother's expense. Do you know what I mean? So
Yes.
that it's snark. It's not like she's, you know, she's got that sort of deadpan thing, but it's like she's not actively making fun of her mom yet in the way that she is going to. So I see the seeds being planted though. When she's just sitting there smiling all innocent on the couch, I'm like, I know your game. Yeah. You cannot fool me. I know.
I was like, wow, to see the birth of the worst character on the show.
I'm scared every time she's on screen.
I am too. I didn't used to feel this way, and now I am.
I didn't used to feel this way.
But they have this little exchange, and then Harry bursts in on a skateboard, which is cute. And then again, when I heard Charlotte be like, Rose, in reference to later Rock, I was like shook. I was like, oh, how far we've come.
Yeah, wow. And then when Rock shows up and is dressed in, you know, the uniform and all these things, it was a little jarring to me. I was like, oh wow, geez, okay. Like I got it. I get what's going to happen, but it, you know, I forgot. I genuinely forgot.
Yeah, I forgot. I also forgot that this is a major plot point in season 1.
Okay. I'm excited to see how they're going to handle this.
Yep. You know how that's going to go.
Super well.
I just want like a bar, 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 bar sound.
Tori's going to give up on us, and we're just going to do our own sound effects at this point.
Yeah.
We're going to be like, can I get a burp, 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 burp sound? And Tori's going to be like, I do not have that.
Yeah, I do not.
That's just on you.
Charlotte shows Rose at this time and Lily the dresses, and Rose kind of pitches a fit. Because it's kind of obvious, I would say at this point, that Rose is not interested in wearing dresses. Then Rose takes the dress and adapts it into their own fashion sense, which I actually kind of love. Like, is it like kind of like twee teenager? Of course, but I love that penguin hat. Hat watch. That was a good hat.
Take notes.
Yeah, Carrie learned something.
Learn something from this child.
And then they show up at the concert. LTW also is at the same concert, because we learn earlier in the scene that LTW's son is also learning piano, and we learn that her mother-in-law is a renowned what do you call it? Piano player? Is that what you want?
Pianist, yeah.
Say? Pianist. But too bad that their son plays like dog shit.
Yeah, it was not genetic. Okay.
Yeah, so that's rough. And then obviously Lily comes out in her Oscar De La Renta and fucking kills it in more ways than one.
Oh.
Put a pin in that. And that's kind of Charlotte's plot. That's all that really happens.
Yeah.
She's just proud of her kids and still annoying. I'm sorry.
That's where we left her.
That's where we left her. I'm going to backpeel to Miranda. So we learn, I think this is like, I forget exactly how the line is, but it's one of my favorite lines where she's like, I'm going back to school to get my master's in humanitarian rights to pair with my law degree.
Yeah, it's very technical. She's been working on that elevator pitch, I guess, is what this is coming from. She has a very pilot-y explanation of what she's been up to.
Like, I know she's a lawyer.
So maybe that's a note of like, we need that for the new people who don't know who Miranda is, but there are no new people who are watching this show, so that's a dumb note.
Okay. This is a request from us. If anyone knows somebody who did not watch, except Emily, who did not watch Sex and the City, but watched And Just Like That, just on Peruse, like, please send their name and photograph. I would like to talk to said person, because I would just be fascinated as to why.
Yes, please come on the show. We would love to talk to you.
Please. It will be an Oprah-style interview. We will hug it out. We will tell you it's okay. We will give you the box DVD set of Sex and the City.
Yeah. We will give you merch, and also we will cry.
And also we will cry. Oh, wait, we forgot the genius way, or I forgot the genius way that this scene opens, where she goes, I stepped on Brady's used condom this morning.
Oh, God. I had forgotten about this, and I could have gone on forgetting about this until you brought it up just now. We could have all gone on without talking about this. Oh, and it goes on for so long, too. I hated it.
It goes on for so long, and it's like...
I don't want to discuss this. This sucks.
It goes to your point of like them being so close every time and falling. It's like, because they basically like, we have that cute opening that we talked about. And then they get us into the Sex and the City brunch where they usually talk about sex. And I remember this from the writers podcast that Michael Patrick King really wanted to drive home the point that like Miranda isn't having sex, but Brady is, which I just think is like inherently such a weird thing for me to think about in that context.
Yeah. I mean, Brady at this moment is still a minor.
Yeah, it's just so weird that it's like, oh, but her son is fucking. I'm like, I don't want to think about it in a very weird way.
What do we take from this is the thing. Like, I don't know why this needs to be such a focus.
It's not like fun sex. So like, I don't know, when they would have these brunches in Sex and the City and like Samantha would bring up some crazy thing, it was like fun and it was happening to them. It's weird to have like gross sex happen to a minor and I have to hear about it.
Yes, that's a very good point. There's something like talking about the, you know, the icky details or the embarrassing details of sex with your friends about like you and your partners is different than like, so my son, like my child's used condoms are all over the floor is like a very different, I would not like if my friend shared that with me. We can talk about sex things all you want, but like, I don't want to hear about your kid's sex life at brunch.
Strange.
And for what? Just to make fun of him anyway. It's not even like it's like, you know, it's not like, oh, my kid is having a problem and I don't know how to talk to it and I'm turning to my friends for advice. It's like, hey, my kid is a sex maniac.
Yeah. This is where like I remember my big criticism of Miranda, and we'll see more later, is like they give her almost too many problems in season 1. Like she has too many like character arc problems to overcome.
She has a lot of problems and not a lot of solutions.
But Miranda and Carrie, they walk out after the brunch and they're chatting about Samantha again. And we get the full explanation as to why Samantha is not on the show, which obviously, as we know, Kim Cattrall was not going to do the show and they had to come up with a reason. All these years later, watching it now, it still makes no sense, the reason to me. I'm really curious what you thought of that explanation scene.
Okay.
Having no context, obviously.
I remember when we were first watching the scene, I was watching it with people who knew Sex and the City, right? And they knew all this stuff and they had to explain to me what was actually going on behind the scenes. It was kind of like her going to London because they're in a fight maybe explains why she's not here in the pilot or the first few episodes. But that's not nearly a serious enough thing to be like, oh, this person is just going to be not in the show. And then they explained to me, like, here's what the drama is. No, she's not coming back at all. Basically, I just didn't believe it at all. Like, that's such a weird, petty thing for these two people to be fighting about. Who these 4 girls, all I know about them is that they're like ride or die best friends. That's the whole premise of this show. And so to explain to me that one of them isn't there because of such this petty minor thing, regardless of who Samantha is as a person, her being mad at Miranda and Charlotte because she's not talking to them either does not make sense to me.
Yes.
You know, her getting a job in London on its own made perfect sense in universe, right? She just had a job and she can't be in New York. Your friends can't stay with you in your same town that you grew up in for the rest of your life. Sometimes they get jobs in London and they leave. Like, that on its own is completely believable. It's like the cutting off this entire group that I really don't understand.
I think it's rude as hell that they imply that she just dropped Charlotte and Miranda too, because it makes no sense. And at the kernel of all of this excuse makes no sense. And it's like, again, I know they didn't want to kill off Samantha because they always had intended to kill off Big. And so they didn't want to kill off 2 people. She moved to LA very famously in the second movie and was like struggling to see them And you could just make the argument that she moved to London and it's, and she's.
And then COVID happened and we lost touch and that happens.
Yeah. Or she just became like a huge deal in London and she's like untouchable now. Like,
well, they can't do that because we know Sarah Jessica Parker has an ego and is not going to let that happen.
Right. She can't let her be like a big famous PR person. She has to just let her be a viable woman in London. That's the merch we're gonna sell is t-shirts that just say viable woman in London.
Oh my god. It's like nevertheless she persisted.
Yes.
Like the sort of like Daughters of Witches you couldn't burn merch, and it's when it's like viable woman and it's like a pussy hat.
Yeah. Nasty woman.
Oh yeah, nasty woman.
Yeah, our nasty woman is viable woman.
Nasty viable woman. We are the nasty viable daughters of the witches you couldn't burn.
But back to Miranda, she again expresses like, well, what do you think of my gray hair? And Carrie's like, you're fire, sister, something. And Miranda's like, cool, I guess I'll keep it. Whatever. So then Miranda goes to school. And first we see her stop by a bar and ask for a little bit of wine before class. And this is problem number 17, that Miranda is an alcoholic.
This is like an actual problem.
Like an actual real problem. Then we see one of the worst scenes put to celluloid in history.
Oh my God.
This scene, I think, is one of the top scenes people tell me when they tell me they stopped watching the show. Is that they got to the scene and they said, I'm done with this show. I'm not watching it, period.
Really?
Yeah, this is a top. There's another scene later on, but this is the top bail scene is what I'm going to call it, which is that essentially Miranda goes to class and sits in the professor's chair and a fellow student says, you can't sit there, it's for the professor. So Miranda switches seats and then Nia Wallace comes in and Miranda says to her, oh, you can't sit there, it's for the professor. And then Nia Wallace is like, well, I'm the professor. And Miranda's like, well, with the braids, your picture doesn't match your picture online. And then it just like escalates into this just boomer word vomit of, whatever, her trying to get herself out of this hole that she's dug by implying that a professor can't be a professor with braids. I mean, we've all seen it. We all know what I'm talking about. I don't need to go point by point. It's rough. I realized in this watch through, and I didn't realize in the first watch through, that I think all these outbursts that we see, we're supposed to understand that they come from the alcohol. Like in the fact that she's drunk. I think. But I did not get that on first viewing. I think I've only gotten it on second viewing. I'm like, all these outbursts seems to happen after we get like her at a bar drinking something. But it's not that is not well integrated story wise, and it's still bad.
I definitely did not clock that. I'm gonna pay more attention now to the sequence of when the outbursts happen. I will say this is the scene. I'm interested in you telling me that this is the bailing scene, because this scene I remember I think set people off when I was watching it. Like this is when the only thing I remember from that viewing experience after this is everyone insisting and just talking about Miranda and insisting to me, this is not Miranda. Miranda was very different from this. And like in a way that why I was interested in doing this show that we're doing in the first place was because like people had such a strong reaction to this.
Yeah.
That like I'm curious to go backwards and watch the undoing of Miranda.
The scene that will never be forgotten. I feel like this was the scene that like for better or for worse marked and just like that. And to me, it feels like a repeat of when Che does the really mean stand up to Miranda, where they really thought that they were saying something, capital S, saying something. And instead they just made their character look really bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is definitely, I think that's a spot on comparison, because I think what's going on in both scenes isn't a character behaving badly. It's the writers thinking their character is doing something that's like relatable or understandable and completely not understanding, like just really showing their asses in how out of touch they are.
I also just want to keep in mind, like, and they were roommates. Like, they become so close of friends that they become roommates after this.
I don't know how. It's so weird. They came from like roommates commiserating with each other over their divorces, and now I'm seeing. I don't even call these microaggressions. This is like a hate crime. It's like what Miranda's doing. And I can't wait to see the arc that these two are going to go on to that will lead from A to B in a completely understandable, logical way. I just can't wait to see that beautiful friendship.
In a well-written and thoroughly executed way. Okay. You really opened my eyes to the hatred of Andre Rashad that I had kind of looked over. And then brought that out. The fact that his first line, his first on-camera appearance is, so what are we thinking timing-wise about our next IVF round? And he is like in the street, cars are honking. She's like in the subway.
Yeah.
And he's just like, so what do you want for dinner? In that tone.
Yeah.
Like, so when are we doing IVF next? Which, like, newsflash, IVF is hard. It's not just like, I don't know, one injection and then you're just like pregnant. Like, it's a long, complicated, very difficult process. And it's just the way that he's just like, so are we doing crab rangoon for dinner?
Yeah.
I screeched in laughter being like, oh, Emily, like, I cannot wait for her to see this.
Well, first of all, I'm honored that I have radicalized you into into like the Andre hate. And second of all, my blood was already like, I could feel the blood like pumping through my veins. You know what I mean? I felt like I was being transformed into the Hulk slowly watching this, because I think like Andre is my trigger, because it was like, you warned me too. You were like, wait till you see him in the first season, whatever. And we just started. So it's like, we haven't even gotten to it yet. It's just seeing him and him opening with that. I was like, oh, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for what this man is going to do to this poor woman.
The other disgusting merch t-shirt that we come up with is another round of IVF.
Yeah. And it's just like an info, like, it's like a stock art of a Cosmo.
Yeah, exactly.
Just for note, like, it doesn't make any sense. That's the thing about like boardwalk merch, is it doesn't really make sense.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like loosely related to Sex and the City. We'll have like a Cosmo and then another round of IVF, ladies.
God, It was like, it couldn't have been like a more cartoon villain, to be honest.
Yeah, he is a villain.
Anyway, but throughout this whole horrific conversation, Miranda's like creeping on her. Like, she can see that she's on the phone and she's still like going towards her like, can we talk?
So weird.
And then she starts just like word vomiting again, because she's like trying to like be basically like, I'm not that person. Except the only note I wrote down was the Muslim ban. A thing I have not thought about, okay, in years. And when Miranda's like, I took this whole class because I was watching CNN when the Muslim ban happened, and I saw the lawyers going to JFK, and like, I just wanted to be like them and like represent people. And I was like, wow.
The fact that we even have to say the words the Muslim ban when talking about, and just like that is so stupid. I don't have words.
I have thought about nothing but the Muslim ban for days.
It's also, I've thought about nothing but, well, I'm so sorry to hear that. I think it's what makes it especially funny is like, it's not even just like a, let's pull in a thing from the world's awkwardness kind of thing. It's like, what makes it funny is that like the Muslim ban also is like several years ago. Yes. So it's like, it's already an out of date thing. But again, the flashcards that they showed Michael Patrick King when he woke up from his cryogenic sleep were made years ago. So they're out of date. The Muslim ban was a long time ago, relatively speaking.
Well, you could just be like, I was at my big law firm and I realized I had no purpose. And I realized I wanted to help
the world
people.
Was shutting down. I didn't feel like I had a purpose, and I wanted to like go out and use my degree for good. Like a normal person. The thing is, like, the people who write these shows are not normal people.
Thankfully, Naya has the best line of all time, which is something to the effect of like, sorry, I didn't hear any of that. Because like the train is like coming as Miranda's talking. We learn, so then Miranda shows up at the concert with Steve. We learn that Steve has hearing aids. This is unfortunately where things, I mean, you already are pro Steve. That's been my indoctrination for you, is being pro Steve. And you can already see how maybe people were mad with season 1.
Yeah, I can see that coming.
And how the hearing aids disappear in season 2. Funny how that works. I think they think the hearing aids are funny. And then they realized that people did not see the humor at all. Instead, they said, "What have you done to my boy?
Right.
My beautiful boy. I've abandoned my child," etc. And so in season 2, there's just no mention of him. And he never says, "What? I can't hear you. What?" All of that shit is fucking gone in season 2. Emily, there's not one time they talk about his hearing in season 2.
No, they don't, because I didn't know that he needed them. I feel like the joke is on him.
For being
his
hard
inability
of
to
hearing.
hear.
Yeah.
And to set it up to be like, not sympathetic. Well, maybe sympathetic is to set it up to be like, man, isn't this so annoying? Like, poor Miranda in this loveless marriage with this annoying person who just can't hear things and is old. You know, it's like, that's what it feels like the joke is. And it feels, it's not just that it's not funny. It also feels deeply mean and really kind of cruel in a way that this show seems to have a propensity for.
It's another example of saying something and really saying nothing and making me not like the character. Not that I don't like Steve, but you get my point, where It's like, I feel like they were like, we want to incorporate like the fact that people get old and they get hard of hearing. And then they just make fun of him directly for that the whole time.
I mean, as we've discussed, I don't think that they clearly knew that people were upset, but we don't seem convinced that they knew why. Like, we don't seem convinced that they know why people were upset about their treatment of Steve. And we thought that the best thing with Steve was when the actor, took control of the plot and was like, yeah, here's what I want. You know what I mean? So I think, yeah, they just took it out completely because they knew it wasn't going over well. I wonder if that means... I doubt, though, that means they learned their lesson.
Absolutely. So then we learn that Miranda has brought a bottle of wine to the concert. And I'm like, I feel one of two ways about this. In one way, I'm like, this is actually kind of fun. Like, I like that everyone gets in on it. Obviously, it's alluding to like the deeper alcoholism that she like can't get through she can't get through this event without a bottle of wine, which like is troubling and all that. But there's a part of my back brain that's like, this is kind of fun though.
It is fun. No, and I think it should be. Like, I think that's... I really hate giving this show too much credit. But it's like, I feel like that is actually what high-functioning alcoholism looks like. It is a lot of fun things. And that's also what makes it, like, hard for other people to call out the person, because you don't want to be the stick in the mud. And you don't want to be the one that's, like, ruining the fun. So, like, you know, if something like that happens, even if any of these characters had any concerns about Miranda to begin with, which I don't think they do yet, but even if they did, if she pulls it out and starts pouring wine, you're not going to be the person that's like, Miranda, why did you bring wine to this event? You know, you're going to like be like, maybe make, you know, you're going to meet eyes with your friend and be like, oh, Miranda brought wine, but you're not going to say anything. You're just going to like have a toast and it's going to be fun. And like, I feel like that is a genuine representation of what I feel like that is. It's just like functioning alcoholism is like fun, because you just see that in social situations.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about it in that way. I do love that Brady and his girlfriend are just fucking making out at this child's piano recital.
Yeah. What? Okay.
And then Miranda's like, knock it off. And I'm like, you enabled this to continue. I'm like, you're part of the problem.
You're part of the... You all need a talk.
You all need a talk and some stern parenting. Yeah. And then that just kind of wraps up Miranda's plot. Like, nothing monumental happens other than, I guess, her coming down from her freak out.
But I can't wait to get into episode 2 with her. We got more stuff for Miranda.
Got more horrific stuff for Miranda to go through. Then we have Carrie.
Oh boy.
Oh,
all right, here we go.
Carrie, strap in. Can
I say in the shot, I started laughing in the first shot with Mr. Big because he was like genuinely a jump scare for me.
Yes. Oh my God. We'll get into it more, but can I tell you, it was so weird to see him.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that my reaction was like, I had the same reaction to being like, oh man, there's a whole like dude that's here. That just like hasn't existed for me for a while.
And then there's just a man here who's like washing his vegetables or something. It's just like in the house. It's like so strange.
I agree. I didn't think it would be that jarring. And I was like, oh. I was like, who is this? The last thing I remember about this actor is that he was canceled. Right. So it was like, I had like a double jump scare where I was like, oh, Mr. Big is alive. And then it was like, oh, Chris Knopf. Like, it was like a twofer where I was like, do I look away? Like, I was like, I don't know what to do.
Yes, it is. The noise that comes out of your mouth when like this kind of thing happens, when you see a canceled quote unquote actor suddenly appear when you're not expecting it, that's the noise that we let out. Like, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Before we dive super into that scene, I do want to backpedal to the fact that you were right about something that is insane, which is, I don't know if you clock at brunch. After Carrie has all her really bad jokes, and I'm like, off the bat, she sucks. We cut to like a person in a fashionable outfit walking by, and Carrie's filming it. And Miranda's like, oh, for your Instagram? And she's like, yeah, I just started posting fashion stuff for fun, but it's really taken off with my podcast. And I was like, I did not remember the extent of this fashionista Instagram. The fact that they came up with that idea that you said would be a good idea, and I concur, therefore concur. And then they just fucking dump it. Or I don't remember what that happens with. I don't remember if it turns into something later on. So like, we'll see.
It certainly doesn't in the second season,
but it certainly does not become big enough to be notable. But the fact that they thought of it and they did it and you were right, and then they clearly drop it eventually, is bonkers. I paused the TV and I was like, you have got to be joking me. And then the mayor thing with Herbert happened 2 seconds later, and I was like, this show caught red-handed, caught red monologue. I see you and your errors.
Yeah. I see you in the naked truth. I mean, it's notes like these where it just says Marina in capital letters, because I'm like, Marina is somewhere blowing a gasket. I mean, I know we have more of the episode to do, but I will let you know that I don't know how I'm going to move on from it, because I've been waiting all evening to talk about this, and now that it's here, I'm like, I will not. I don't know what to say.
I will not move. I'm going to be a dead horse. Okay, I'm going to say two things over and over again. I hate it. That's like, unfortunately, my catchphrase, and I didn't invent that, but I'm just saying I say it too much. The other thing I'm going to say is they wrote the Insta fashionista line and then dropped it. And let me tell you something right now, okay? They're writing season 3. Season 3 will not come out until 2025, they said. If this does not come back in 20 and 25, I don't know what I'm going to do. Violence, for sure. Arson, probably. But it's not going to go well.
And, for legal reasons, I want everyone to know that she's not kidding.
Oh, I am. That is an active threat. No, I'm just kidding.
That is
This is when the
arson, probably.
Yeah, arson, probably. This is when the lawyers step in, and I say that all of this.
They drag you away from the microphone while you're screaming like, "It will burn!
It will burn!" Yeah. And then a gentle voice comes on to say that, of course, this was taken as a joke, and Marina does, these intentions are not real, and underneath her First Amendment rights, she can say whatever she wants. And I'm clear, so you're welcome.
So.
Boom, baby.
Boom. First Amendment, baby.
Woo. Well, the Carrie train keeps going because we get to that aforementioned scene where Carrie's with Mr. Big, and we already spoke about the external conflict of why it's weird. Let's talk about the internal conflict of why it's weird. I remember the first time I was watching this scene, and I think it had been spoiled to me that Big died. Like, it was in the ether. And I was like, this scene is just like Hallmark levels of he's gonna die. You know what I mean?
You mean like, the scene where he's like, I'm just looking at you.
Yeah, well, no, that one is like where he's like glowing in the angelic light of the window. You're like, okay, so the next scene he dies. This scene is like an attempt at brainwash where they're like, hey, the Mr. Big you remember, he's changed now. He's nice and caring, and he just wants to dance and shower you in gifts, and look at how they are together. And he's going to die. That's what the scene feels like to me.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It is an obvious... You could watch this without knowing anything about Mr. Big or anything about the behind the scenes, whatever, and you would watch and be like, I don't know what's going on, but that man's about to die.
Yeah.
You know, it's such an obvious, like, you know, it's like when they show the hero's family at home and there's like a wife and 2 young children and they're like, Daddy's home. And you're like, this family he's going to be divorced by the end of this. This family's going to be gone or they're going to be dead.
Yeah. That's like the exact vibe of this scene. All the scenes with Big give that. They give, oh, have fun today. Hopefully it's not the last time I see you.
Yeah. I can't wait to see you later tonight.
Oh, I would like to interject that Allegra, which I don't know if that's the real Peloton woman's name or not, that I forget.
Yeah, has anyone looked into this?
But that woman did not know she would be killing Big. So that woman is a real Peloton instructor. She's not an actress. She's a real Peloton instructor. I just don't remember if her like Peloton name is Allegra or not. But that is a real Peloton instructor who's like one of the more famous ones. And she just thought a cameo in the Sex and the City reboot. Why not?
That is so interesting because this whole Peloton fiasco, I think the ultimate question is who knew what and when did they know it? So like from my perspective, I'm like, if I were Peloton's legal team reviewing this agreement to be featured in this episode, it would matter to me if the character who's using it dies on it from having a heart attack, right? I think that'd be a little important. And so like bit. I want to know why it was approved, and was it like there was a theory that went around when the Peloton commercial came out shortly after this that like, oh, this whole thing was just to drum up like virality on purpose.
For Peloton, yeah.
For Peloton and to set this whole up. But this is an interesting clue in the mystery because this alludes to me that Peloton was not as aware of how the bike was going to be used as they should have been.
Yeah. Peloton really beefed it because they should have leaned in. Like they kind of got caught in a happy viral accident, which is like what you want as a company. And instead of like, and then they like tried to lean in with that commercial and then they got fucked because Chris Noth got canceled. But they should have just continued to lean in. It's kind of like, do you remember the Peloton ad that came out like, I don't remember how many years before, of like the wife who gets gifted the Peloton for Christmas?
Oh yes, where she's like, looks like she's kept prisoner by her husband.
Yeah. And like that turned into a viral moment for Peloton. Like I just don't understand. Like Peloton really somehow has managed to debunk like all bad publicity is good publicity. You know that like saying?
Yeah, that is exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. No, you said it exactly right. Is they're gifted virality. Like they're gifted these moments that are not engineered, clearly not engineered in the way that they're meant to, but they're gifted these moments that are always bad. Like they go viral for the wrong reasons and then they can't get their way out of it. That woman that you mentioned ended up in a gin commercial. I don't know if you saw the like part 2 of this. I think it was a Ryan Reynolds gin.
That tracks.
But she ends up in this commercial. They hired her for it, where she's at the bar with her friends who are supporting her because she's left her like abusive husband who bought her a Peloton. And she's like sitting there staring and they're like, are you okay? And she's like, now I am, or whatever. And she's like drinking gin with her girls.
You're
like,
right. I remember this. Yeah.
They got to capitalize on Peloton's misfortune. You know what I mean? It's like, it's so funny if actual jobs and lives weren't tied into this stock crashing and mass layoffs. It's like, it's really kind of astonishing how they always seem to be on the wrong side of virality. Look, they need better lawyers is what I'm saying, because they're not reviewing these ads very carefully. They need better standards department.
I agree. And as standards, I would have asked more questions.
Yeah. I would have investigated further.
100%.
As Allegra, I would have investigated further.
As the Snyder, I would have put more slow-mo in the death scene when we get there. Anyway.
Noted.
So then...
Release the Snyder cut. It's just a longer cut of Big dying.
He reaches for the phone and gives up 2 more times. Anyway, I don't want to get into it because it's too good, but we have to get into the podcast. XY and Me.
I didn't know it was called that.
Oh, yeah. Chase says in the intro.
At least in season 2, it was just called, I think, Sex and the City. Or was it just called In Just Like That?
No. So she goes through 2 podcasts.
Oh,
so
this is a different
podcast. This is Lisette's favorite podcast.
This one?
Yes.
XY and Me?
Yes.
All right, why don't you tell our audience what comes next while I think about this?
I honestly...
I need to contemplate this information. I remember we ended our last season being like, keep track of Lizette and keep track of the podcast, and I did. In all the podcast scenes, I did. I was like, Lizette is listening right now while she's cooking her fucking, I don't know, quiche in her fancy apartment, and is like, oh man, I love my gals, guys, and theys. This is the best. And like, she's on the Reddit. She loves every episode. She's in the fandom. Like, that was in my mind while this was happening. And you can explain what this podcast is.
So, yes. The podcast, in short, is a cis straight guy, a cis straight woman, Carrie, and then Che, a non-binary individual. And they are just talking about love and romance, I guess, in the year of our Lord 2022. Couple things here. I don't even know like what is there to recap other than the podcast is terrible. I guess the main plot is that they kind of start getting in a raunchy direction, and Carrie's able to give a couple one-liners to kind of like dodge the bullet, but then at a certain point she's like no longer able to dodge the bullet anymore when Che just confronts her directly and says, do you masturbate? And Carrie cannot come up with an answer, and so she kind of like falters on that. Yeah. And that's really what happens on like a note by note. I just want your unfiltered response first, and then I will go to my usual nitpicking garbage self. So why don't you start with what your unfiltered response was to this podcast?
I mean, the podcast, I'll give it that it's closer to what a podcast is compared to what I had seen previously on this show. However, I would say like, it is an interesting setup for a couple of things. One, it's set up for Carrie being like surprisingly a prude when it comes to being a sex columnist. Like this is not I stepped on my son's filled condom or whatever on the floor. This is like, do you masturbate? It is like the easiest of raunchy questions, I feel like. And she can't cope with it. So like already it's like this podcast, I don't think she should be on it. I don't think sex columns are like her thing. I'm so sorry. It's time for a career change. But the 3 of them, I don't understand at all. I know that they're friends. The show has told me repeatedly that they're friends. I would rather like jump in the Hudson than have to like listen to this podcast. It's just there's no chemistry between them. It's clearly like, here's a raunchy line about this. Here's a raunchy line about that. It doesn't feel like a conversation between people who know each other. You know what I mean? There's no like familiarity or sense of camaraderie.
Well, okay, so really interesting points that you bring up, because again, it goes to the nonsensical thing of Michael Patrick King being like, we need to like the new characters need to be introduced as news characters in these people's lives. So they don't know each other. Really. they're coworkers on a podcast, which I think is the strangest thing. Because I think the one thing about podcasts, other than like if you're a news organization, obviously, like podcasts are generally like two friends talking about something, or
that's literally what this show is.
Well, that's what this show is. But like, I kept being like, how did Carrie even get this job? And then Che even says like, oh, you were so funny in your job interview. And I was like, so this is like a artificial podcast. And I feel like that's why it feels stilted, because like, again, they should have just written it like Carrie's been on this podcast for 3 years, as opposed to like Carrie was hired to be part of this podcast by like who? And it could have been solved too by Che being like, you know, we had that one crazy night and I thought you were great and you would be good on a podcast, but like it's not working.
That's so true. Or if that is what we see in this episode, is like Carrie's Instagram gets noticed for some reason by Che, and then Che is like, you should join us on this podcast. We're looking for our third or something. Yeah, I completely agree. I think Then to put my producer hat on for a minute. Right.
I'm happy that Bobby Lee is employed. Like, I'm a fan of his.
That's a producer hat.
I want I'm like, I'm not trying to come for Bobby Lee's gig. Like, I want him to get that sweet HBO check. Okay. But if you're going to put like a straight dude, I almost need like a Matt Rife. Like, I need a guy who's like really the opposite of these two other people. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Bobby Lee is like,
if that's the gimmick, is like, oh, if that is the gimmick, then I think we need like the straightest of straightboard.
The straightest of straights. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because that's what Carrie's giving. Carrie's definitely giving the straightest woman of all time.
Yeah.
And then like Bobby Lee like is again great and funny and I love him, but I just need like, again, a more straight person. Because it's the other thing that, just to shout out one of our listeners, Chris, was messaging me about this. We were messaging back and forth about it, because I totally agree. It becomes really clear, even in this first podcast scene, that they, Michael Patrick King, think that non-binary is both a gender and a sexuality. Because
that's a good point. I think you're right.
This podcast is also confusing because they don't make it just a gender thing. Like, you know, the podcast isn't about exploring gender, because the question immediately turns to sex, which makes me think that this is a sexuality podcast. So then it's like, why are there two straight people and one? Che doesn't necessarily identify their sexuality, I think, in the show ever. I don't remember, but you know, whether is being bisexual or pansexual, like on the sexual spectrum, they're more fluid than like Carrie and Bobby Lee are. But like, then why is it essentially like two straight people and one sexually fluid person?
That's a really good point that I hadn't considered. That like, you're right that this is not actually a show about gender identity because of what they're talking about. But they have no one. Che is just there to be the queer person, but like they get identified by their gender, not by their sexuality, even though this is a show that's clearly about sexuality.
Yeah, it's so strange. And then like
there's no cis queer person on this.
Yeah, and then the show catches themselves in that with the woke moment, which, you know, I have been waiting to have our woke moment and to say that from here on forward. But because then Che is like, woke moment, like, I don't represent all, you know, the entire LGBTQIA2 plus rainbow, right? And it's like, okay. And I want to be clear, I'm not saying that the show has to be about just gender or it has to be about just sexuality.
But we're trying to play within what they've set up, which is that it seems to be that, right? Like, we're trying to guess what the show is about.
Yeah, they have made it very gendered in literally just the premise of X, Y, and me. And then the whole show is about sexuality.
Right, exactly. It's
very
really half-baked, and I want to give some credit and leeway, because it is hard, I think, to understand the gender spectrum when you like wake up after 30 years of cryogenic sleep. I can understand that. So I know that Michael Patrick King doesn't really understand what's happening, but he's trying his darndest to like put the pieces and the flashcards together to figure this out. I understand. So I want to give him some credit there. I do agree, though, that is like, you cannot... I challenge anyone to watch these scenes and then send us what you think the log line of this show is.
Yeah.
What's the summary on Apple Podcasts for this show? What do we think? Like, send me your best version.
Yeah, I just want to take a moment to shout out our listener, Chris, because Chris really put it succinctly for me in a way that I was like, absolutely, yes. It's the flashcards. The flashcards had non-binary and then had no sexuality cards anywhere. And so...
Yeah, it was just like... no, it just had a card that said trans and then nothing else. And then there was a card that said non-binary is a thing. Nothing else. So he's putting the pieces together from that. Everyone be very patient. It's really hard, you guys. It's really hard when those are your only clues and there's no one you could possibly talk to in this world besides your like 3 writer friends on this show. It's very hard. So everyone go easy on him.
But you know who loves this podcast?
Lizette.
Well, Lizette and Gabriel from MI7 back from the grave.
Right. Oh my. Really back from the grave. There is so many people that really feel like it feels like Game of Thrones. It's like all of the fallen people have returned.
Yeah. Then we get another horrific scene, which is Carrie and Che are in the elevator.
Sorry, it's going on the
t-shirt.
Work. It's going on a t-shirt, by the way. Make a note of that. And then we get another horrific scene.
Carrie and Che are in the elevator, and Che is basically like, Carrie, first of all, Che smokes marijuana in the elevator, which like
crazy.
It's crazy. Like,
crazy.
You are still
what are you doing?
Like, yeah, you're a comedian, but like you're in an elevator. You're not like in your office.
I hate that we have to keep explaining that you're a comedian is not a justifiable excuse for so many behaviors, but it's true. I do love that you're like, yeah, you're a comedian, but you're like in a place of business. That is not a sentence we would say anywhere else in any context.
And yet, here we are.
Yeah, an insane thing to do.
So they blaze up in the elevator, which makes no sense. And then basically Che is like, we need more banter. Like, you're too stiff. And then Carrie's like, I like the call-in segments on the show, which we've established is not a podcast. And then Che is like, listen, to put it succinctly, you need to step your pussy up. Which, again, if these people were friends, it would be fine. Like, I would get it. It's rude, but I would get it. The fact that they make it very clear that Che is Carrie's boss, Carrie's coworker. They use words like this to describe this relationship. That is inappropriate. And I have had some inappropriate ass bosses in my life, okay, who have tried to fucking level with me. Not one of them would have ever told me to step my pussy up in the elevator of the building. And that's another one where it's like, well, if you don't like that, then you don't like stand-ups. Okay, but then just make them friends, because then I'd be fine with that.
Right, exactly. Which it goes to show that Michael Patrick King does not understand what stand-up is, and what he doesn't even understand his own excuse, because like Patrick Michael King doesn't, as we've established, understand how like friendship works. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't know how friendship works. He doesn't know how stand-up works. So he's just like, I don't think he has the like background knowledge to understand what is wrong here, because your fix makes it so, again, is very small, but makes like the biggest difference. When does someone sue Che Diaz is my question, because there's so many behaviors here. I'm not a particularly litigious person, but Che is making me feel litigious.
I'm also like, is the way that like we, instead of like the day that we finally like break over this reboot, okay, instead of sending Michael Patrick King like a turd in a box, do we send him just like the first 3 seasons of that My Little Pony reboot on DVD? Just like, this is friendship. I feel like you need a starter course on like friendship is magic, and like these are how these things come together, because
I agree.
None of these people would be friends. I would be humiliated if my boss told me to step my pussy up. Forget the language for a second.
After this, how are we supposed to honestly believe that these people are friends? Why on earth would Che Diaz, who tells her to step her pussy up, be invited to the funeral?
I know. Well,
can you imagine Big is in heaven, or he's down there, and he's looking up at this funeral, and he's like, "Who the fuck is this? who is smoking marijuana at my wedding? I mean, my funeral."
I don't want to get into it too much, but yes.
Sorry, that's my tease. That's my tease for our next episode.
So then I forgot about this detour that we take completely. And then when it started, I was like, oh my God, I'm so uncomfortable. So Carrie goes home, and I guess she tries to be funny by writing a fake column about masturbation. Whatever. I don't know how she thinks that's going to work for her, but she tries. And then she goes over to Mr. Big and she's like, do you masturbate? And he's like, maybe. And then she's like, masturbate for me. And he's like, okay. And then he starts to masturbate. And then he's like, no, let's just have sex. And then they have sex, presumably off camera.
Yeah, so what was the point of this adventure that we've had?
Why? Especially when it's lit like he's going to die. I'm like...
There's an angel light behind him.
He gets like one last rubbing tub before he goes. Like, it's just gross.
At least he died doing what he loved, himself.
Having his penis in his hand. It's just so weird. And again, it's like, if he wasn't going to die, it would be an interesting episode premise. Because, Carrie, the Sex and the City episodes are about Carrie's columns. Like, the column is what happens in the episode, right? Like, it's related. And so, like, that's what it feels like where this episode is going. But he's going to die. So you're like, I don't want to have this weird masturbation romp.
Yeah, exactly. And to your point, it doesn't, like, really go anywhere. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah. If this were the bit of the episode... and it was just like, Carrie learns how to masturbate for the first time at 50-something. That'd be like, if anything, kind of cute. You know what I mean? Because it's like, it's not everyone knows how to masturbate. Like, maybe, I mean, it's a little shameful because she's a sex columnist. But like, wouldn't that be sort of fun? It's just like, this person learns how to masturbate at 55. You're never too late. And then like, maybe gets a new thing out of it. And you enjoy watching your partner masturbate. You know what I mean? Or something comes out of it at all. I really shouldn't say that about like a penis. But like... we get some sort of progression but we don't. We just get the setup for the scene that just turns into sex anyway, and then we're done with this.
It sucks. Okay, what you have said is so true and so on point. And I further it by saying, when And Just Like That was announced, it was kind of pitched to the public as being Sex in the City of women of a certain age, which like I think is an inherently interesting topic, and this plot line that you have just ironed out would be a perfect episode that they could still do, mind you. Well, not anymore, but in theory, like that would have been a perfect episode for this kind of show that I would have been interested in seeing, especially because it comments on Carrie being a prude in that very direct way. Instead, we have to deal with the death of Big. So then we get the very famous Carrie just walks in her closet and says, hello, lovers, to her shoes. And the shoes are, of course, the wedding shoes from the first movie. We'll get to the full symbolism of that much, 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 oh, Emily, much, much later on. But if you've seen the documentary, you know that she required the entire set production staff to redo this whole closet for this 3-second shot. So that's the only thing I can think about. Is that some guy couldn't have dinner with his family because Sarah Jessica Parker didn't like how the closet was, and then we saw it for all of 3 seconds.
Those kids are starving at home.
Yeah. Daddy.
Mom, is Dad coming home? No, he has to build the shoes. But Mommy. Miss Daddy.
So as I said, Carrie puts on the wedding shoes and she goes to see Big, and he's like, I just wanted to get one last look at you. God.
Before I shuffle off this mortal coil.
And so then Carrie leaves for the concert or whatever. Then we get the most interesting directorial choice, which is as Big is working out hard on the Peloton, it's intercut with Lily killing it at the piano, as we mentioned before. Many people ran wild with the theory that Lily killed him, which
that's the best news I've heard all day.
Which is pretty good.
People ran wild with the theory that Lily somehow killed him. Why?
Because they just how? Like her music.
What was the theory? What was the theory?
I think it's just the idea that like Lily's playing and then he died.
Like she's some sort of god?
Yeah, I guess.
That like doesn't know her own strength. I mean, you know what? After everything I've seen, sure, I believe that.
I believe that more than half the things that happen in this episode, so
there you go.
But then he suffers from the famed heart attack while trying to get in the shower. I think my most irritating point about this whole scene is that he drops his phone and then he falls to the floor. And they needed to kick that phone just like a foot further away because he reaches for the phone. He's like basically touching it. And then you can see in his face that he just gives up. And it doesn't read like, oh, the phone's too far away and he's suffering. It reads as, you know what? I had a good life.
I think I'm done.
I'm done. I don't want to be part of this series anyway. I'm done. The fact that he waits for Carrie to get home to then die just tells me that he was like, you know what? I'm good.
I know. You know what? I've had a good run. I had a good jack off. I think I can end on a good note.
I can end on a high
Thinking of
note.
Allegra.
Thinking of Allegra. But the fact that he like, she got there and he moved, like he could have just passed out. She didn't even check his pulse.
Yeah.
She didn't even check his pulse.
Carrie, as we've established many times, is not a good person to have in a crisis.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And then we get...
And then the funniest, and just like that...
Big died.
Yeah.
And that's why you know... Can I just backpedal? Like, you can tell this is the birth of "and just like that" as a concept. They just wanted to say that line so bad. And for what?
It's funny. I'm sorry. It's so funny. You can't say lines like that in your show. People will laugh at you. And just like that, Big died. Cut to black. Just cut to the credits. It's like...
Okay.
Why'd you have to make it silly? Yeah. I know. Okay.
I'm like, I don't even like him. Anyway.
Yeah. But he makes the food.
He makes the copperhead salmon. And that's the first episode of season 1.
We're off to the races, baby.
Basically, 14 to 15 years went by. And we thought Sex and the City was done, and it came back with this first episode.
I can't fathom the emotions that would have been running through you when this aired and it concluded.
I think I was just numb. And that's the gift of our podcast, is that in having to force myself to relive the trauma, I'm able to take full awareness of the crimes being committed and maybe do something about it by bitching into a void.
That's really inspiring, and I hope you heal.
Thank you. Well, I think we should get into our end segment, as we always do, where we talk about our high and our low. Let's start with the negative. Emily, what was your get them of this episode?
It's gotta be the Muslim ban scene of the I saw that and I wanted to be a lawyer subway debacle. Because I think it's like the braid scene is already really horrifying. Like every line is horrific, and I see why people quit. But I'm gonna pick the other one because at that point, that's what tells you that it wasn't a mistake.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It wasn't a fluke. So that's when your heart really sinks. That's gonna be my get them.
I think my low point. I think my get them is gonna be the influencer thing. It's the one topical joke that they made that actually was something. Instead, we have this podcast that, as a producer, I'm upset. As a citizen, I'm upset. And as a standards official, I send it back.
Back to the drawing board.
Back to the drawing board. What was your release the Kraken of this episode?
Man, my release the Kraken of this episode. This is a hard one, honestly. Because there's not a lot of joy in this episode. I will say that. I would like to see Lily kill another man.
Nice. Maybe you will. No.
Oh, Emily.
Season 3. Oh, Emily. Wouldn't that be so funny? I'm like, oh, Emily. Okay. I think my release the Kraken is that I get to say woke moment from now on because you know what that is.
We'll agree to disagree on whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Cool.
Cool.
And just like that, with that, we are done with season 1, episode 1. Join us for episode 2. Episodes come out every Wednesday. You can follow us. You can like us. You can give us 5 stars. You can listen to every episode. You can listen to every episode again. You could reach out to me. You could reach out to Emily. And we will see you next week. Bye.